So hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you all for joining us. We have a fantastic session for you today. I'm Natalia, Product Marketing Director at Sendine, and in today's webinar, we will learn more about Metasearch and how it can boost direct bookings and revenue for your property. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping details for attendees. This webinar is being recorded and all the registrants will receive a link to the recording via email soon after the webinar. All attendees are on mute, so if you would like to ask any question during the webinar, please use the questions module on the sidebar of your screen. Your questions or comments are only seen by today's presenters, and we have reserved some time at the end of the webinar to run through them. Following the webinar, if you would like to access more learning opportunities, please check out the Sendine resource library at sendine.com. So let's get started. I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Shirley Reyes, Associate Media Director at Sendine. So Shirley, or yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you everyone for joining. I am super excited to be here. Admittedly, this is my first webinar with Sendine, so I am super excited for all of your questions, and for any of my clients who are on the phone, any and all feedback after the webinar would be much appreciated. Just as Natalia said, I am Shirley Reyes. I am the Associate Director of Media here at Sendine. I have been at Sendine for since the Pegasus merger came from the old Travel Tripper days, have worked with many of you for many years, and excited to meet some more of our clients and hopefully some future clients in here. Today, we'll be talking about Metasearch. Metasearch is just one of those digital marketing components that not a lot of people know about unless you're in the hotel space. But when you are in the hotel space, it is just so important to be active in Metasearch, because ultimately this is our bottom of the funnel and where we're going to drive a lot of conversions. So what we're going to be talking about today is what is the landscape in hospitality. There is a difference between organic and paid Metasearch, and even hotels that are not participating in paid Metasearch can fully take advantage of organic Metasearch. But of course, if you are participating in paid Metasearch, I would encourage you all to reach out to your account managers, make sure your organic listings are active. We'll talk about how to optimize some of those. We'll talk about what are the different campaign types, what can we optimize, what can't we optimize, and what are we really looking for when it comes to the KPIs in Metasearch, how we can make Metasearch work for your properties, what does success look like, and then we'll open up to Q&A at the end of this call. So one of the most important things to know is that 94.4% of consumers do use price comparison at least occasionally through their booking, and 72% of them do use Metasearch sites. It is just super easy, and we all do this, right? Not sure if you guys have looked into Amazon Prime Day. I know I am looking for a deal, and so are your customers. And that is why we're using price comparison sites, even if I do have my favorite hotels. And Metasearch is the perfect one, right? Because I can look at a hotel I actually want to book in and see who has the best rates. Ultimately, I'm going to go with the cheapest, most flexible booking rates available. So what is Metasearch? If there's anything I want you all to remember leaving from this webinar, and it is true for all digital marketing, is that Google and other sites are really looking to provide the best answer to questions in the easiest way. And Metasearch was born from that. So Google, when you go into Google, they're looking to make it super easy for users to find the answers to the questions that they're looking for. And with Metasearch, they were able to accomplish that super easily, right? So users are looking for hotel near me, or let's pretend the Elise Hotel, the Boston Marriott, and they're going to be able to find the available rates, available dates, all without having to click on the website. Metasearch integrates your booking engine directly into the channels. And so typically we are Google heavy because that is what most of us do. We need something, we Google it, we go in and we find it, we buy it. But of course, Bing does also have Metasearch, TripAdvisor, Trivago, Kayak, and other websites are coming out with Metasearch as well. So why Metasearch matters? Number one, it's going to increase your brand exposure online. If you're not currently participating in Metasearch, I can 100% say the OTAs, FITs, and other partners are. So you're missing out on 100% of the clicks that are going to Metasearch. It is also a very cost-effective advertising channel. On average, we see anywhere from a 3 to 10% cost of sale, meaning that you are generating 90% of the revenue or more that you're spending on Metasearch advertising to generate that booking. It is very cost effective. We do see some of the highest return on ad spends on Metasearch specifically. And then we also see higher conversion rate, right? This is someone all the way at the bottom of our funnel. They already know where they're going. They already know the hotel that they're looking to stay in. And now they're just looking for that best rate. They're looking for that most flexible rate, etc. So this is where we really drive a lot of our bookings, and we really want to make sure that that person has the best experience. There is a difference between organic and paid Metasearch that is important to note. So when we look at Metasearch overall, we can actually see OTAs and third-party entities above our Metasearch listings. However, if you're taking advantage of organic and paid search Metasearch, what you're actually going to be able to do is you're going to be able to take up more space on those sites. More real estate will lead to higher click-through rates, which will lead to higher engagement, which will lead to higher ROAS, etc. With that said, there's a lot less space right on Google when you go to organic. I will point to the screen in here and just say paid search or paid or Metasearch is going to be the first typically 3 to 4 spots on that Google listing or on Kayak, Trivago, etc. Every single Metasearch site kind of works the same here. We want to put a lot of emphasis on the paid portion, and then you have underneath that this all options section, and anything under all options does fall into organic Metasearch. And so typically here, best rate, official site, those things will be given priority, but you will notice that if you have a lot of price parity issues, etc., you will fall into this little small link called View 29 More that someone will have to click into to actually see your rates. And so this is why a lot of the times, even if you are participating in organic Metasearch, you will not see yourself there. We want to make sure that everything is aligned so that you see yourself in both paid and organic Metasearch, as in this screenshot attached. So Metasearch is very different from standard Google search in that with standard Google search, you're going into the website. And with Metasearch, you're going directly into the booking engine. So you can almost see it as there's less click fatigue for that user to actually book your site. With organic Google search, what you're thinking about here is you're thinking about educating the user on the hotel. With paid Metasearch and organic Metasearch, you're thinking about getting that booking. And so what we're optimizing is two completely different things. Organic, you're optimizing your website. Metasearch, you're optimizing your booking engine. I always say, if you can't beat them, join them. So this is why we don't want to just be part of Google Metasearch. We want to be part of Kayak and other channels, right? We want to use OTAs as our partners. But what happens if someone does click on Expedia, for example, or they click on booking.com instead of your website's Metasearch ad or listing? What can we do there? We want to, number one, identify what is our approach for setting up that client for success, that customer, right? We want to complement our efforts with the OTA. So we always want to make sure that listing is well thought out, it has the pictures, it has the availability that we need. We want to market ourselves intelligently in that partner because we ultimately still want those bookings. We want to showcase our best rooms. We want to optimize that entire online presence. Take a look at your reviews. That is especially important with OTAs. If you have negative reviews, respond to those reviews. And we want to understand the audience that's going to those Metasearch channels. And why do we want to talk about OTAs when we're talking about Metasearch? Surely isn't the point to drive direct bookings? It's true, but there are still a lot of OTAs on those Metasearch panels. And when our users go there, the number one issue with them clicking on those partner sites is that when they go to the partner sites, typically they're going to see an entire listings page with all of your competitors right underneath it. So you want to still optimize those OTAs because that's how you're still going to generate that booking. It's just going to come at a little bit of a higher price than if they had clicked on your own direct link. What if the hotel is not participating in Metasearch? Again, you're going to see that we're not going to show up. We're not going to show up in paid. We could possibly still show up in organic Metasearch if your hotel is taking advantage of that. So this is a call to action to everyone on the call that doesn't have organic Metasearch running. Reach out to your account managers, make sure organic Metasearch is running, because you could potentially show up in organic Metasearch, even without showing up in paid Metasearch. If you're not showing up in Metasearch at all, 100% of those clicks are going to your OTAs, and you're going to be paying a little bit of a higher commission than if you were to book direct. And what are the campaign objectives and KPIs when we're looking at Metasearch? So one of the most interesting things that people don't think about is Metasearch does actually do a little bit more for us than just that bottom of the funnel. But most people are only taking advantage of this bottom of the funnel listing. When we look at our entire funnel, we go from awareness to consideration, intent, right? Awareness is, I want to go to New York City and I am looking for a hotel in Times Square. I am dreaming about this. I am thinking about where I'm going to stay. I'm thinking about what my budget is going to be, etc. And then I can start planning. One of the really important components here is that we can actually set you guys up in property promotion ads. So sponsored advertising in TripAdvisor, PPA ads in Google, etc. And so what this means is that when someone's looking for hotels in Times Square, if you have a hotel in Times Square, your listing will show up there on the top as a paid partner. So we do expect traditionally a lower return on investment here, but it is a way to make people aware that you exist, you're a property within that budget, and you're a property in their specified location. Then what most people participate in when they think about Metasearch is this bottom of the funnel intent. I understand I want to go to the Fontainebleau. I understand I want to go to Miami. I understand where I want to stay. I understand it's within my budget, and now I am looking to buy. And this is where Metasearch really falls into. Here, what we're looking for is very high return on investment and high intent. So ROAS is going to be our #1 KPI when it comes to Metasearch as a whole, right? Now, typically, we would also be looking at impression share. And I encourage everyone to look at that impression share report, because what impression share is going to show you is how much inventory you're leaving on the table. So what I see a lot of the times is our clients want to get the highest Metasearch possible. Typically, when we go too high, what you're actually doing is that you're leaving possible impression share on the table. And impression share is simply how many people are looking for you versus the amount of times that you actually show up on that platform. And so what I always like to do is I always like to do a bottom threshold and then a top threshold. And my top ROAS threshold, I usually say is around 25 to 30x. And what that tells us is there is possibility that we are not hitting the impression share goals that we want to hit. And so when I think about my impression share goals, I want to show up as often as possible. I want to show up as often as possible so I can generate as many direct bookings as humanly possible for my website and still make it efficient from a budgetary standpoint. And so that's why you want to have your upper threshold of your ROAS, right? When I see a 50 to 1 ROAS, I don't think that's a very well-running campaign either, because what I'm thinking about is we're likely leaving 50% of the inventory on the table. We're not showing up 50% or more times for our clients, and all of those clicks are going to our OTAs, and we're paying higher commission there. So higher ROAS does not necessarily mean better ROAS. Now, how do we make Metasearch work for your specific hotel? Number one, there's a lot of platforms out there, and your hotels do not have to be in all of them, right? So that is the #1 thing I want you guys to think about. When you're looking at your reports that you're getting from your account management team, think about, am I actually showing up in all of the platforms, and why does it make sense? For example, we see a lot of TripAdvisor be international bookers. If your hotel is not international heavy, it might not be the best platform for you. Or I'm sorry, Kayak, right? So Bing, typically we do see some more corporate folk, and the reason is you get a brand new computer from your job, usually it's a Windows or a PC, that Windows or PC comes with Bing automatically integrated. So we see a lot more corporate folk in Bing, right? And so is Bing the best for your hotel? I'm not sure, only you will know, right? See, we want to pick what are the best platforms for your property, and we want to understand each of the platforms' business models in order to do that. Who are they appealing to and why? Next, we want to connect our tech. So right off the bat, what we do is we integrate your hotel with our software in the middle so that we can have ARI, your availability, rates, and inventory flowing right through to the channels. So we want to make sure that we have the right rates integrated. We want to have the right availability integrated, right? We want to look at, do we have length of stay restrictions that are preventing us from showing up? Do we have the right rates going through and flowing through to the Metasearch platforms? Do we have secret rates that we don't want? All of those things are things that we want to constantly look at so that your Metasearch continues to perform. We want to choose the right attribution model. So what is the customer's path to booking? And how can we make it so that we understand how that channel is actually performing? So for us, we do tend to look at a last click, right? We want to make sure that somebody that's clicking on your Metasearch is directly buying so that we have, you know, the best attribution possible to make sure that we understand how that channel is accurately performing. And then we want to set parameters and rates. And I don't see a lot of people doing this. And this is something that I would really encourage everyone to start doing, right? So this is where we get into the fun part of Metasearch. What are the things that we can optimize for? My favorite ones, length of stay. We can actually put bid adjusters and modifications on your Metasearch campaigns and optimize for people that are going to be staying a little bit longer than other people, right? So my favorite here is I hear things like, hey, Shirley, how can we get some more transient or corporate bookers in, or leisure travelers, right, during the weekdays? And so optimizing for 3 to 4 day stays tends to do that. Typically what we see is people are staying weekends and into the weekdays or even during the weekdays, right? And this is a really easy way to optimize your platform. So you can have length of stay optimization, meaning that you're paying a little bit more for that click if someone is meeting your minimum requirements for length of stay. Device optimization is another really, really big one. We tend to see more often than not that people do look at where they want to stay on their mobile, but they end up checking out on their desktop. So desktop does tend to perform a little bit better from a return on investment perspective. And so typically we like to optimize more for desktop than we do for mobile, and then less so for tablets. We're not seeing a lot of people still using tablets to check out from a hotel. Geography. So we can optimize the campaign by where they're coming from. If you're seeing, hey, most of my travelers in Florida in the summer are coming from the US, but then I go to the fall and they're coming from Canada or from Michigan or from places where we're seeing a lot of snowbirds coming from, right? We can optimize your Metasearch for that geography for those specific seasons so that it's very targeted to the users that are actually wanting to come to your hotel. Checking days of the week, another really great optimization point. We can say, hey, I am looking for users that are going to check in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, which are usually slower dates for those hotels that are in high traffic, high tourist destinations where most people are coming over the weekend. And then advanced booking window. So again, something else that we can optimize for, hey, I am looking for hotel guests that are going to be staying for, I'm not sure, this concert that's happening at the arena right next door on Friday. Can we optimize for that, right? Etc. So these are some of the things that we can absolutely talk about and discuss in your monthly meetings, and we can optimize for. A lot of this we're going to get from the hotels. So this is where you can really give a lot of information over to us so that we can optimize your Metasearch performance for the things that you actually need to fill your rooms. Now, we can also set parameters. So we can also restrict advertising. For example, we can say, I want ads for last minute bookers because I am pacing behind for this specific weekend, right? Or I do not want people from California because I see that a lot of people from California end up canceling. Not sure, right? So there's different things that we can do to restrict your marketing. But also I want to talk about rate parity and setting up those right rates for those bookers, right? So you can set up different rates for Metasearch, for example, that are always your best rate guaranteed or best flexible rate, so that you always know that the rate that's going to show up in Metasearch is going to be your lowest possible rate for your properties. And then, of course, every single month, what would I look at if I were you as a hotel? Number one, your ROAS. Again, within that threshold, right? So you want to have a minimum threshold and an upper threshold. You will decide with your account team. Number two, your click-through rate. So click-through rate is a really good determination of, is my rate parity in line, right? Or are my rates actually good? Or is the call out, right? Does it say the right things on the Metasearch panel for my hotel? If I see my click-through rate dropping, I know that there's probably something I need to look at. Three, online reputation. We miss this often. Typically what we see is that ROAS is good or ROAS is falling, click-through rate is falling. We don't understand why. Online reputation is something you should be looking at. What are my reviews like? And then conversions. How many bookings? What are those bookings like? What is that typical average length of stay for those bookings? What is the typical average booking value, right? What does my conversion look like for my hotel? You want to monitor your costs, right? So we want to put money into the channels that are performing for your property, but at the same time, you do want to be careful with that to an extent, because you don't necessarily want to close out all of your channels just because they have a lower ROAS. They are performing to an extent within your threshold, and you want to keep them active just maybe with a lower budget. So how do we get integrated? When we think about Metasearch, we think about this one point approach to conversions, to driving those bookings. Then we want to build this integrated marketing strategy. So we want to think about, where are we showing up? Do we have PPA or SPA running? How are we showing up for the channels? We want to look at holistically, are we driving the right bookings or the right bookers to actually look for our hotels? So a lot of times we'll also see that some upper channel or upper funnel channels aren't driving the right people to our hotel searches, and that leads to actually a Metasearch decline. So we want to take a look at all of our channels holistically, because again, Metasearch is just one part of our funnel. And then how can we use Metasearch to build that long-term relationship? What I always like to think about is, when somebody clicks on your direct link and books direct with you, you own more data, you have more information about that user, you have more that you can actually give that user back to delight them when they come to your property. And so how can we leverage Metasearch to build your email marketing list, right? How can we leverage Metasearch to build the clientele that is going to be coming back to your property again and again and again, year after year? What do we think about with Metasearch success? Some of my favorite ones are hotel data here, for example, and you guys will see threshold, right? So 10x, we had 27 bookings here, 326 come from Metasearch. 10 to 1 is a perfect return on investment for some of the properties, because what it's going to allow us to do is really max out our top of the funnel or our mid of the funnel that we can get on Metasearch, while generating the conversions and bookings that we're looking for. Equinox, 25 bookings, 562 clicks, 11 to 1 return on investment. So you guys are see that we are not choosing the properties with the 70 to 1 return on investment here. We're choosing the properties with the return on investment that is going to allow us to show up as frequently as possible in the Metasearch panel and drive those direct bookings right to our brands. So with that, the way that we think about Metasearch is, we think about, number one, how can we make sure that we have the right rates? How can we drive it through to the right channels? How can we use AI technology to optimize those channels for best performance? And then how can we use the information that you're giving us to make sure that we are using Metasearch to meet the goals of each and every single property? And now I am opening up for questions. If anyone has any.
Thank you, Shirley. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you for all the information shared during today's session. It has been great and super knowledgeable. So we have now a few minutes for questions. So if you have any questions for Shirley, remember to please submit them into the chat module on the right-hand side of your screen. So let me check the question bar. So I have seen a couple of questions so far. The first question that we have received is, it is very difficult to maintain rate parity because you have all these random websites showing fake rates to the guests to entice them to go to those sites that most of the time we don't even have relationship with. How we can tackle that?
That is very difficult. So there's a couple of things that I would say. Number one is keep track on what those websites are. It's important to note that a lot of users with the smaller websites, they're not going to trust those websites anyway. So even if they are showing a lower rate, those websites tend to not have the budget. They also tend to not have the authority and command that your website will have in the major OTAs, right? So while it's difficult to see them there, and it's important to monitor them, sometimes we can disregard some of it depending on what it looks like. And it's going to be different for every single property. However, if we can't disregard them, the next thing I would do is put a system in place. For example, at Send9, we have something called Rate Match. It's going to help you identify the rates and who is undercutting you at any given time and help present the users with the best rate at checkout. And that will be your hotel, right, versus those other FITs. Third thing I would look at is when those FITs do show up, go through and actually see who sold those rates to the FIT or to those third parties, right? Which FITs you're partnering with that sold their rates and went against their contract, and then call them, right? Send them a cease and desist letter, etc. Really, that is usually the best way to keep those rates in check. It's a little bit of more manual, but it is worth it at the end.
Great, thank you. Then the second question is, why is my lowest rate plan not showing up on Metasearch?
So there's typically two main reasons for this. Number one thing I would check is if you're on the RCRS, check your compound access code. If you're in Synexis, check your meta filters, right? Every CRS is going to look a little bit different, but you want to check what rates you're actually passing through to Metasearch. What we find most often when we see this issue is clients will set up a new rate and they won't put that rate plan within the Metasearch filters. And so therefore that rate plan will not actually feed through to Metasearch. So that's number one. After you've checked that that's all done, typically the second biggest reason for the rates not showing up is you changed it too frequently, right? So it does take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours from a rate change to actually appear on a Metasearch channel. And so what we tend to see is that unfortunately OTAs does have priority under over indexing with those channels, meaning that their rates change a little bit faster than our rates will. So if you change your rate this morning at 9 a.m., do expect that latency period for your actual rates to show up. But again, I will check your rate your Metasearch filters first. That tends to be the issue 90% of the time.
Thank you, Shirley. Next question is, can you explain the impression share again? Is there a benchmark?
Sure. So impression share is a rate. Basically, it's divided by how many people are looking versus how many times you show up. So if 100 people look and you showed up 90 times, then you have a 90% impression share. The benchmark tends to be 90% or more. So we want to show up as often as possible, but of course we want to take into consideration the law of diminishing returns. There's a time where showing up too often is going to lower your returns past a point that we don't really want to lower to. So this is why we don't typically recommend an 100% impression share. Now 100% does, that doesn't exist. So I do want to clarify with that. Bidding for 100% impression share doesn't mean we're going to get 100% impression share. We're always plus or minus a couple percentage points. That's just because we cannot ever know the exact demand that you're going to get for your property every single month. We can just estimate based on the demand you have had in the past few months and then in the past few years, right? So anything from 95 to 100% does tend to see a little bit of a diminishing return, and we just want to monitor that for your property.
Thank you, Shirley. So this is the last question. We got so many questions, but don't worry because we will redirect the rest of the questions to our experts to get back to you personally with the relevant information. But I believe that we have time for one more. So in here, they are asking, do we really need to offer parity to OTAs, or can we send them out at a higher rate but via a channel manager?
So, good question. Can we send out a higher rate to OTAs than what we have on our website? It depends. It's my biggest answer. So a lot of the times you will notice that when you first sign up with an OTA, you will sign contracts that will say that they do require your rates to be in parity with theirs. So what that means is that they do not want you selling at a lower rate than they're selling, and they could actually ban you from using the OTA sites if you are out of parity with them too frequently. So it's kind of this two-step approach. Depending on your contract, it's going to be stricter or less strict on what that's going to look like. But typically, they do have that included, and for that reason, we don't recommend, making that decision to send them higher rates often and frequently.
Thanks for the answer, Shirley. So that's all the questions that we have time for today. We really appreciate you all connected and for your questions. If you have any more questions, please send them through to the following address, and our experts will get back to you with the response. So with all of this, I would like to give a very special thanks to Shirley for this great session. Thank you so much, Shirley. And we have a little survey that will pop up as you leave the webinar. So if you have 30 seconds, we will really appreciate if you take time to answer it. And then if you would like more information on Metasearch advertising or Sendine digital marketing services, please contact us at info@sendine.com. And yeah, thank you again, everyone, for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all.